This is Michael Cowan, and welcome to Trial Lawyer Nation.
You've got to have the right case, because if you take it up and it's the wrong case, then you can make some really bad law that's going to affect a lot of plaintiffs.
There's always an answer. The joy is in finding.
One of the reasons that I love being a lawyer is this exact process.
The way we live our life has nothing to do with the presentation sequence at trial.
As trial lawyers, we pick up and move on and keep going.
You're losing or gaining 1 out of every 10 jurors, which can really make a huge difference in the ultimate result of the case.
Whatever you think about, you create.
Learn all you can and never stop. And then have the guts to try case after case after case.
Welcome to the award-winning podcast, Trial Lawyer Nation, your source to win bigger verdicts, get more cases, and manage your law firm. And now, here's your host, noteworthy author, sought-after speaker, and renowned trial lawyer, Michael Cowan.
Today on Trial Lawyer Nation, I have our marketing genius, Delisi Friday, who's not just my marketing genius, she is also our trial prep, make sure we can have visuals, make sure everything works, genius in the office. How are you doing today, Delisi?
Well, I'm doing great, because I think you called me genius like 3 times.
Well, you are. And so you all might notice, if people are used to getting this thing first thing in the morning when this podcast gets out, that we are late today for the first time ever. We're into our 3rd season, and I'm a little embarrassed, but there's a pretty good reason. I was supposed to be starting the biggest trial of my career today, and I had been doing nothing but trial prep until about actually 11 p.m. on Saturday night when the case resolved. Probably should have been disciplined enough to do a podcast yesterday, but it didn't happen. There was maybe a little alcohol involved yesterday afternoon, and we had to blow off some of the steam we built up getting ready for trial. But Delisi and I did a lot. It was going to be a Zoom trial, which is a little scary, but also really exciting because there's all sorts of possibilities with that. And so we thought we'd share a little bit about what we learned getting ready for this trial. So Delisi, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff we did and that you and your team did to help get us ready for trial?
So I think first we started with talking about the space that we were going to use, because for you, it was important to, yes, you had your space where you could sit down, but you're a very physical person. So you needed a space that we had dedicated for this trial where you could stand up. So we started by figuring out where was that going to be, and then how do we make that space up? So we did everything from moving furniture to make it open for you. We bought a backdrop so it looked like a professional backdrop. We thought about, do you have degrees in the background when you're sitting down at your desk, or do we have another backdrop? Lighting, sound, video, and then who was going to be where, because during all of this, we still had a social distance. And then we had to think about what was their job? Who was going to be in charge of saying they're in charge of making sure this camera's on this person. If you were going to pull up an exhibit or a visual of some kind, who's in charge of that? And then where everyone was going to be. So there was a lot of stuff. I would say that the logistics was a big part of that, but so was the technical aspect. And I'm sure we'll talk about it today, because we went back and forth on some of the technical, and you also practiced a lot, which helped, because what we started off thinking was going to happen didn't end up happening later. So I would say a lot of that was thinking about the space. Where was it? What was going to be showing? How are we going to show it? And what were the different pieces of equipment that we were going to need, and whose job was what?
Yeah, of course, every case has its own budget, and had we been doing a, let's say, smaller car wreck case, we would not have been able to maybe do some of the things we did, but I think we still could have done a lot of what we did. I think the first thing to talk about is just the ability to stand up. One of the things about a Zoom trial is if it's nothing but a talking head, and you expect this one, I like quick trials, but this one, just because of the number of witnesses and exhibits, and at one time there were going to be 2 plaintiffs, other plaintiffs settled out before we did, but it was looking like a 2-week trial when we were planning it, because we had, I think, 38 to 40 witnesses we were going to call. then other people, we're going to call some witnesses too. And I don't think that, but whether you do a small one or a big one, I think that for voir dire, for opening statement, especially, you don't want to be sitting down. You want to be able to stand up. You want to be able to use your hands. You want to be able to use body positioning and body movements. But it's a challenge. Not just we don't not only had to figure out, okay, how do we film it? Where can we film it? But really, what you're doing in a Zoom trial, and it was exciting and scary at the same time, because we were really doing a live TV show.
Yeah.
That was going to go on for 6 to 8 hours a day. No retakes, it's like you're live, you're good. And so just like a live TV show, you have to think about, where are you in the screen? What is not only what are you doing, what's the audience going to do? And, we're used to basically putting on a live theater, a live stage production in a courtroom. And you have a lot more space to work in a courtroom. And so, like, I can say, when I'm talking about what the defendant did wrong, I can stand here. And when I'm talking about what happened in the crash scene, I'm going to be here, and then I can have another place for when I'm talking about my client before, just different spaces that you anchor to different parts, and then kind of, create your reality in the courtroom. Well, what we found on the Zoom screen is we had a much smaller area to work with. And when we tried having a camera follow me around, it just didn't work very well. And now when we got the professional camera people, and we'll get to that later, that may have worked a little better, but at least with us doing it ourselves, we didn't have the equipment. Even with a tripod, it was shaky and just not as smooth, and it was disorienting to the people who watched it. And so I think one big thing when we do our Zoom trials is to, get your space, think about your lighting, anywhere from, we do other things because of our marketing department and stuff. So we had some professional lighting. We rented some more on a big case to, I'm right here. I'm using just a the ultimate vlogging kit I bought at Best Buy a little while ago because I left my ring light at the office. But even that, $100, $200, it makes all the difference from, them being able to see your face to looking dark and sinister.
Well, you mentioned see your face, so I want to bring it up. You had a chance to speak to someone who had been in a Zoom jury trial and talked about how important it was for the jurors to see your face. So what advice was that, and what advice would you share?
Yeah, the big thing is that they originally had 2 lawyers sitting at a conference room table and a wide angle camera where you could see both lawyers at the same time. But because you could see both at the same time, sitting 6 feet apart and socially distanced, then you could not really see either one of their faces. And even if you sat a little closer, well, one, you're sending the signal to the jury that if you're not wearing your mask and you're sitting within 6 feet, that you don't really care about safety, which is the opposite of what we're trying to say in our lawsuit. So you're already giving an incongruous message that if you're preaching safety but you're not practicing it, you're a hypocrite and you're not worthy of being believed. And I'm not, I don't care what your personal feelings are on this stuff. I'm just telling you, if you're trying a case, you don't want to do anything that's going to cause cognitive dissonance in the jurors or make a juror think you're a hypocrite.
Right.
Even if you've both been vaccinated or you both just got over it, maybe, you couldn't get it, or maybe just everyone in the room is COVID positive. You don't have to worry about spreading anymore. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I mean, you have to create that image. So, I think that's a big mistake. I think it's better to have 2 cameras, one in each person, and even if you're in the same room, and have good lighting. They have to be able to see your face. And we had the judge even point out one of our hearings, one of our lawyers, he was at home and he's like, Mr. So-and-so, I'm sure you're a very nice man, but you look really sinister because, of the dark lighting. The judge said you need to get some better lighting.
Yeah. Well, and I think another part of that is also your eye contact. So the eye contact and then what people see, because one of the things I didn't realize is when you like to point at things so you can guide someone where to look. And one of the things we realize is when you do that in Zoom, you're a mirror image and you don't know what someone's going to see. So that was one thing that we learned right away. But the other thing was you had to learn how to look at a camera to connect to someone, but you couldn't look at their face. So how hard was that, and how did you practice?
That was really hard. So let's do the 2. I want to do, those are 2 different things. So one, especially working with Sarah de la Motte, I learned in the stage, in the courtroom, if I want the jury to look here, I need to look there. I need to look where I want the jury to look. So if I'm working with an exhibit, If I'm making eye contact with a juror and saying, look over here to my right, it's cognitively confusing. Like I'm making eye contact with you, but I'm telling you not to look at me. So I need to go look where I want them to look. I need to lead it. Well, you're exactly right. On a Zoom, I don't know where my window is going to be when I go, when we go to scare screen and I'm going to be sticking in a window somewhere. I don't know where that window is going to be on the juror screen. So I can't necessarily point. And then there's a whole mirror image thing where I'm pointing maybe the opposite of where I intend to point. So it's very confusing. And so what I had to learn, like, let's say we're going to share a picture. I had to learn, and for example, there's a stop ahead sign before you get to the intersection. And I had to shut up, let the stop ahead sign go up with me, just a little picture, leave it there in silence for a couple seconds, fade out, wait till I get the okay signal or the thumbs up signal that I can start talking again. And, and it took a lot of practice because, I'm used to directing everything myself while I'm speaking. And now we have to really practice and rehearse, which I think it made my presentation a lot better than it's ever been because, I usually do some practice, but never this much because we had to do the technical stuff. And so we just really had to be, we pretty much had a script and, sometimes my word would change, a little bit from here and there, but basically I was going to say this, we would display this. I would say that, we would display that. And then, where I was going to stand, what gestures I was going to make. I mean, all that had to be practiced. And the other thing is the gestures, for those who, are we showing this on video too?
Yes.
Okay. So like here, I'm reaching up, you can't see my hands, or I'm going out like this, you can't see my hands. So, can I do a gesture that's not going to be like a little gesture that makes me look weak, but big enough, but still not go totally out of the screen. Now you can go a little bit out because, they see what you're doing. The other thing I learned is like right here, my hands look gigantic because they're a lot closer to the camera than I am.
I jokingly said it's like you're a flight attendant and you have to know exactly where you're going to put your hands, where and when, and purposefully.
Yes.
And I have heartedly joked about that phrase, but it was so true because once you started to get in your groove and you knew where you were going to put your hands and when you were going to do it, it was impactful. And it was like what you were doing was on purpose, and it made a big difference because when you didn't, it didn't feel as confident, but once you got into it, it felt very confident.
To me, it was almost a new level of mastery. Like, I worked a long time. I've been working for years with Josh Carton. I was sorry to Lamont about using my hands. And just kind of it naturally kind of happening, which is good. But this time, we had to purposefully plan and rehearse my hand gestures. Yeah. And I think it was even better because like at one point, like, I had this person here was one person. I'm just leaning here. I was standing and moving when I was doing this one was there. So like the operations manager complains to this person, your drivers aren't doing safety training, and nothing happens. So then he goes up to his boss. Hey, they're not doing safety training. Make them do safety training, and nothing happens. That doesn't work. He goes to the other managers. He goes all the way up to the vice president level, saying, "Hey, and you practice where you're pointing, where you're looking, and you create the spaces on the screen that you're looking at, so that it really looks like there's one person talking to three other people complaining about the lack of safety at this company." And it took work. I mean, it was fun work. It wasn't like all the other motions we had to respond to and stuff like that. I think part of it, because it was so new, it was just energetic and fun to do when all the tech was working. So that's, I guess, to answer the first half of your question. The second half was on eye contact. That was the biggest problem, was really because for opening, I just practiced talking to the camera. And so that's easy. You just look at the camera, you talk at it. But for jury selection, we were going to have a screen with up to 49 people, most of whom would be jurors, on the screen at once. And we'd gotten a 70-inch, we have a 70-inch TV that we just hook up to a computer that we've been using for trial for a few years. And it was great because you could actually see the squares were big enough that standing behind the camera, I could see the squares, see the names. But when I talk to someone, let's say someone's in the upper right corner, when I'm looking at the upper right corner, I am making no eye contact at all. And so like I'm talking to them, but it looks like I'm looking off to the side when I'm talking to them. Then when I look at the camera, so they see that I have eye contact, I have to look at their reactions out of the corner of my eye, and it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And so we practiced it. It was still weird. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was weird. Now we came up with a solution And again, the bigger the case, the bigger the budget can be. So the initial solution was just to get another monitor and put it right below the camera and be logged in twice. So once I would be logged in as me, and that's where I'd have the gallery view where I'd see someone else. Then we'd just be logged in as CRP attorneys or Cowan firm or something like that. And that one we would have on where it would spotlight the speaker. So at least I could have that right below the camera and be looking at the camera and still see that person. And then later on in the story we'll talk about, we ended up through some frustration hiring professionals to come in, and they had a teleprompter that actually they could use a teleprompter screen where I would see the person and actually the camera would actually be behind the image of the person, and I could actually talk directly to the person. And that was awesome. If you have the budget, if you're doing a 7-figure or up case, I would definitely say for opening statement, for jury selection, hire a professional camera crew with professional lighting, because as good of a job as you all did, it really was when you have someone that has the real equipment that costs way more than we'd ever spend, and has the experience producing live TV shows. It really does make a difference.
Well, and I'm sure it made a difference in your confidence too.
Yeah, and like I said, your team did a great job, but we had done one practice and we wanted to improve a few things, and this was so embarrassing. So we did a practice with people in the office, and everything worked fine for voir dire. And I got this bright idea that I was going to do another practice session, and I put a call out both through the trucking lawyer group, the Academy Truck Accident Attorneys that I'm in on their listserv, and then through Sorry de la Motte's Hostage to Hero group on Facebook. I put a call out, hey, does anyone want to volunteer to be a practice juror to help me with my voir dire? And I had all these people want to do it. And frankly, it is scarier to do a practice in front of a bunch of other lawyers that I don't know that well from around the country than it is with a real jury. Because I wasn't only having to think about connecting with the people, but I was having to think, okay, now they study the same techniques I have, so they're going to be judging me on, am I getting it right? Is my body language right? What am I doing? Am I following the right techniques? And our tech guy, our visual guy, Raul, had tried to use the new upgraded stuff that we got, and it didn't work. Mm-hmm. One of the cameras wouldn't broadcast. My microphone ran out of battery. Another microphone didn't work. I mean, it was like 10 minutes of just technical glitches, and oh my gosh, it was not fun. And of course, in front of everybody else, all the other people, and everyone was really nice about it. I mean, I think it turned out okay, but it was good that it happened, the Thursday before voir dire and not on the morning of. But I mean, I think it's one of the lessons is, practice with the equipment you're going to use. If you're going to make any changes, you need to go practice, make sure it's going to work perfectly on the day of, because you don't want to be thinking about, is the tech going to work or not? You want to be thinking of that connection with the jury.
And I agree with that. I think what happened was, as we started getting better and better, getting ready for this, we thought, well, how can we continue to up it? How can we keep doing better? And I think that was one lesson I learned in this, was there had to be a stopping point where we didn't do anything else new, because we needed plenty of time to rehearse with it. So yes, it went well before because we were using the same equipment. And, from my perspective, when we got the new camera, it was because we needed to do it so we could do a witness and you, and both had good quality. What we weren't ready for was for the new camera to have a setting we hadn't practiced with. And that's where that technical glitch came in. With the audio, we spent time looking to find the best microphones that made you feel like you had a TED Talk going on, and you looked great and the sound quality was good. And we charged the battery the whole time before you went live. But even though the box said it was going to last a certain amount of time, it didn't. Yep. So I think we learned you have to make sure you don't change these things too close to trial. And you can't always expect the equipment to work, even if you just bought it. We spent a lot of money on that mic. So, we still have the box. I'm going to return it. There's no reason for us to spend money on something if it says it works a certain amount of time and it doesn't. So absolutely. That was a big opportunity for us to realize, if you're going to do this, use all that equipment before. So now I'm just thinking, how do we implement that in our office? And I think we should be using all the equipment we're going to use in trial right now. We should get comfortable with it, and we should know it and feel confident it's going to work when it needs to whenever we do this again.
Each year, the law firm of Cowan Rodriguez Peacock pays millions of dollars in co-counsel fees to attorneys nationwide on trucking and company vehicle cases. If you have a case involving death or catastrophic injuries and would like to partner with our firm, please contact us. We have experience finding potential defendants that other firms miss, and we've added millions of dollars to cases by finding these sources of recovery. If you have a catastrophic injury or death case where the policy limits appear to be insufficient, give us a call. If we can find another defendant, we can partner on the case. And if we can't, then we won't ask for any of the fees. You can reach Delisi Friday by calling 210-941-1301 or send an email to podcast@triallawyernation.com. She will coordinate a time for Michael Cowan to speak with you in person or by phone to discuss the case in detail. And now, back to the show.
I think the other thing is, Raul, the guy we had doing it, he's been to one trial with me in real life, but he's never, I don't think he quite envisioned what a virtual Zoom voir dire would be. And, now that he's seen it, when because the day that I was practicing with all these other people was also a day that I had a bunch of court filings due and motion responses. And, I was like, I put an hour aside from this and I had to get back to other deadlines. And, it was a stressful day. And, next time I'm going to say, you need to rehearse the tech and have it perfect before I get there and not be messing with it with me there and using me as the guinea pig for messing with it. It's just one of those, live and learn. We learn. But I do think that we need to be doing more, if we're going to keep doing Zoom trials. And I'm hoping that I'm going to get to try a case. I mean, I really wanted to try this one, believe it or not. It's just at some point, the numbers get to the point where, you're not doing your client a service, because even if you hit a home run, you have a risk of getting, millions of dollars less than what the offer is. It's like, well, it's in, and, the client wants to take it. It's in the client's best interest, and you've got to do the right thing. But I'm just hoping we have at least one case a month set from now till the pandemic's over, whenever that is. And I'm hoping at least one of those times I get to go one of these Zoom trials, because I'm dying to do one. I really think we can do as well, if not better, in a Zoom trial than an in-person trial. Mm-hmm. I think the people that are doing it, especially now that it's novel, they want to be there. Everyone I've talked to that's done one, the jurors are engaged. They're watching and listening. They like the fact that they don't have to go downtown to where the courthouse is, find parking, deal with all the, uncomfortable chairs and, just being there at the courthouse all that time. I think they're going to enjoy it. And I think that a story is a story is a story. If we have a good story, we can tell it through this medium as well as we can tell it from the courthouse medium. And frankly, as plaintiff lawyers, there is another advantage in that we control what the jurors see. Because a lot of times at the courthouse, they're not listening to the testimony. They heard your client say, I can't go more than 30 minutes before my back starts hurting and then I have to get up. And your client is trying to stay there and be stoic, and they don't want to be getting up and being disrespectful to the client. Well, there's a juror timing them. And they keep going over to look, is he squirming? Is he getting up? Is he doing this? How long has it been? They're not paying attention at all. Or how is your client walking? Or what is your client's facial expression to certain testimony? Well, a Zoom trial, you turn your client's camera off.
Yeah.
Or not have your client there, there a little easier. Or at least you know what they're seeing. They only see the face. They don't see them walking around. They don't see it. It just changes everything, because we control what the focus is. It's really, I think, an advantage. So I'm wanting to do one. I'm excited about it.
I'm sure we will. And you mentioned storytelling is storytelling. And I will say, as someone who watched your opening many times and I saw how it changed throughout the process, I thought it was so interesting when you would do it through Zoom, because you want to rehearse like people are going to see it. One of the pieces of feedback we'd always get was the less you used and the more you focused on your facial expressions, your hand gestures, your body, the more people connected with you. And at the very beginning, we were talking about what visuals were going to happen because we didn't want people to lose interest. But I found it so interesting that more people were engaged with you when you didn't. So what was that process like for you?
Yeah, it's funny because my original script probably had 20 visuals at least in it, because I wanted to break it up. And my also thought was to use two cameras so we can be switching the camera angle on me so we could, get rid of the boringness. And then people thought that was distracting, the camera angle changes. And they found that when there were too many visuals, that it did break up it broke the eye contact and stuff. And so, yeah, it's funny because I didn't think I could do the eye contact thing over Zoom. I didn't believe I could make that connection. And it turned out I could, which was really so cool. I mean, to me, that's game changing. That if people are watching, you can look at the camera and they can feel you over Zoom, and through your facial expressions, through your gestures, through your vocal tone, you can create an emotional connection even over this camera. It really is, but not if you just sit there and be boring. I mean, you have to put work into it. You also have to really believe your story.
Yeah. So your story did change a lot. How important was it for you to have fellow trial lawyers to bounce ideas off of to get to that point where you were ready for opening?
It was invaluable, and I have so many people, and I don't want to name all the names because I'm going to forget some, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But I had friends from across the country. I recorded one of the first versions of my opening statement. I put it on Dropbox and I shared it with select people, and they took 30, 45 minutes to give me feedback. Sometimes some written, some on the phone. Sorry to Lama, who's going through chemo. Like, I want to cry saying this. I mean, she actually recorded a video of going over my opening statement and giving me coaching on it. When one of the 45-minute times she was feeling well enough to do it. I mean, I love her. Well, God bless her for doing that. I mean, just the love I felt, the part of a community, no one has said, oh, by the way, I want 5% of your case because I'm doing this for you. I mean, it was, and you're not going to get it if you're thinking it, but just having that support and that feedback really helped. Now, different people had different ideas. I didn't do everything everyone, but it made a huge difference. The other thing was my feel. As I practiced, I just realized things that looked good on paper didn't feel right when I did them in person. Artemis Malekpour was also, she's with David Ball's partner. She also was nice enough. No, we were paying her, but she was nice enough to give me some really good feedback, and she's also brilliant. That's one thing I've learned is just, we're there to help each other. And, there's professionals that will help you, but, there's colleagues that will help you, and getting that feedback and then using it, and also, you listen and you have discernment. Like, yes, this fits for me. Know that there are, some people had some ideas that were really cool, but they weren't me.
Yeah.
And the other thing that really made me happy is and it kind of surprised me because I was almost apologetic when I asked Artemis to look at my opening, because I did not strictly follow the David Ball opening structure. And I was a little worried. I love Artemis, but I was a little worried about a lecture. And I had very specific reasons for not, like our case involved a stop sign, a stop ahead sign, a highway intersection head sign, things like that the driver didn't see any of, and he passed and wasn't looking. And, I thought if I just showed the signs are the rules. I didn't have to say, when there is a stop sign, we must stop. And if we don't stop with a stop sign and we cause a crash, we are responsible for the harm that we cause. I mean, it just seems silly to say that. And then there was a very contested issue of whether the driver was messing with a cell phone or not. I believed under the forensic evidence he was, but the driver, he denied it. We didn't have any in-cab video or anything. And it's interpreting the data on there, which, I thought showed that, he was messing with it. And 3 seconds before the crash, he was pressing a button on it. But, their experts said otherwise. And so rather than me putting it out there saying this guy's on the phone, or me saying, a driver must not be distracted by the cell phone while driving, and where I'm kind of like putting it out there, I wanted to tell the story in such a way where the juror is going to say, of course he's on the freaking phone. David Ball calls it alignment. When you tell the story that makes them say the defendant violated the rules, then because they came up with themselves, they grasp onto it and they'll fight for it and they'll hold onto it and they'll see the whole case through that prism. And that's what I was really trying to do. And I just felt for this case, the traditional state the rule, tell the story of how the defendant broke the rules, throw in a statistic, all that kind of stuff. It didn't work for this case. And Artemis actually liked the format. So I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, but it was great to have so many people. And if anyone here was one of those people, I mean, I owe you guys, and I said, guys, you men and women, I owe you all. And next time when we can see each other in person, the first round's on me, dinner's on me.
I will tell you, it was really awesome to see it from the very beginning to what you had it to just before trial was supposed to begin. When you came back and you did something different, I would be like, how did I not think of that? And it would just the smallest thing. You didn't change the words. You changed some of the ways that you maybe phrase something or the order, or you added a little something, or you changed the direction you were facing the camera. They all made a difference. So it was very cool to see that, especially as someone who I didn't know anything about the case. So when I heard your opening, I was really hearing it for the first time. And it was very fun and magical to see the changes once you incorporated some of that.
And one of the great things, actually, because since we had to practice with the camera and the lights anyway, is sometimes I do the whole opening, but I like when you want to tweak, you pick the part you want to tweak and you just work on that part. So, hey, I want to do on how we set the scene. Let me work on scene setting, and we do that a couple of times till we felt really good about it. Okay, well, let me tell the story of what happened, and like we realized the first time, I set the scene going towards the camera, and then I told the story going like perpendicular to the camera, and that's like what the, who was it? I think it was Ken Levinson. I think it was Ken Levinson or Steve Gersten. One of the two was like, you set the scene one way, and then you turn it, and like I don't trust you anymore. Like what the hell's going on here? It's like, oh wow, So I tried it both ways, and then we looked at it, and then same for, we were trying some expressions and positioning of. So we could let's do let's do this 3-minute part of the opening, because I was trying to get the whole opening, believe it or not, on a whole opening on a major catastrophic case in under 20 minutes, because I think it's important in the Zoom especially, but even a courtroom, I mean, to be brief. But we could just take like a 3 to 5 minute part, practice it, watch it, practice it, and just get it to where it's perfect, and then you put it all together. It was just, it was fun. And I've always preached like practice, and I've tried, but because we had to do the technical part, it really forced me to be disciplined and actually do it. And so I was so much more prepared, so much more relaxed than I've ever been.
I think it also helped you take some risks too. Because when we started to get into it, we started to do different things. Like, I'll give an example. We practiced doing it left to right, and then you took the advice and you said, okay, let's do it forward and backward facing the camera. And at the very end, we even did it towards, you kept getting closer and closer and closer to the camera, and we would mark it. And then you got really close. And as you were telling the story, just your position to the camera and walking closer and closer to the camera made it so much more dramatic. And I loved it.
And then when the cameras, when the other driver's running the stop sign, like my whole body's going, you can't even see my face anymore because you feel like something's running the stop sign about to hit you.
Yes. Yes. It felt, I don't want to say theatrical, but it in a way it did. We were able to use the fact that we were doing this through Zoom to our advantage to tell the story, but to make it stand out. And I think that part of the practice was very helpful to the case and making it stand out. I was actually kind of sad we settled, because I really wanted to see what defense counsel was going to do and then how that was different from ours, because we worked so hard getting it ready.
Yeah, they told after, we also did some what I call psychological warfare on social media, because we knew the defense would see it or it would get back to them. So we posted pictures of our studio. We put, we had this big 10-foot long 3D model of the scene, and we posted pictures of that and us working with it. We posted, and that was the great thing about the camera stuff, was we figured out a way to use, when we paid to have that thing done 1.5 years ago, we thought it was going to be a live trial. We never heard of COVID at that time.
Yeah.
But we figured out, how to make it work. And we were going to get rid of all the problems with trying to use an animation, that we had 2 little cars and you could move them and show how they hit and there would be no objection to that. And it really was impactful. But we also were posting some pictures and stuff. And I think it really added to the terror effect on the other side, because their reaction the weekend before trial compared to how they'd been the other 2 years and 3 months of the case was night and day.
Wow. That makes my heart happy because I was a part of that.
You were a huge part of that. And no, I could not have done this without you. And that's the other thing. As we move to the virtual trials, I mean, and you don't need, I'm blessed. I have a team of pros at my office, although we're learning on this stuff, but you need someone to help you. You cannot do this all on your own. It's not possible. You need someone to help with the lighting, to help with the setup. And so, it's just part of it. You have to, and it, like I said, you can, if you practice enough, I think you could do this on a smaller case. We're just talking about, put a sheet or a blanket or something hung up behind you so that you have, a decent background.
Thank you to everyone who attended Cowan's Big Rig Boot Camp in August. We had an excellent virtual turnout this year and are already thinking of how we can continue to raise that bar for next year. If you'd like to attend virtually in 2021, be sure to mark May 20th, 2021 on your calendar now and save the date. To stay updated with details as they become available, visit bigrigbbootcamp.com and sign up for our mailing list. And now, back to the show.
I think that actually is something I want to share before we end is a lot of the stuff that we got, it was just on Amazon or Best Buy. And it wasn't stuff that broke the bank. The backdrop that we got, the material itself was like under $30. If you actually want to put a backdrop up, you can buy that for under $100. And it makes a difference because if you have those ring lights, the last thing you want is for it to reflect off your degrees in the background, which we noticed when we were practicing with you. Yeah. And sometimes you don't even have to do that. I recommend paying attention to where the lighting in your office is when you're on Zoom, because you noticed in the second half of the day, your office has the sun facing in. And even if we close the blinds, the sun was coming in. So I spent $0 and brought in a box of something I bought online. I feel like I should share the photo.
Yeah.
I will share the photo to show what this looked like. But for $0, I just brought in a box of something big I had bought, and I just stuck it behind your computer to block your windows so none of the sun would come in and shine into your eyes. And just little things like that are so important because you don't want to be in the middle of, cross-examining someone and then you just have dots on your face.
Yeah, all the dots from where the little strings go through the blinds. I just have like this line of dots on my face, like I'm some Scottish warrior getting ready for battle or something. It was, it was distracting. Yeah, and the ring light reflecting off my degree behind me was distracting. And so, and I think practice, and like I said, a lot of them weren't expensive. And if you don't mind, Delisi, can we just maybe post some links to some of the stuff we used in the show notes?
I actually think the best thing would be for me to post direct links to all the pieces that we got. Yeah. Raul and I had talked about creating a video for our Trial Lawyer Nation fans and showing you what pieces you need to buy if you decide you were going to do a Zoom trial or for whatever reason, and you want to use 2 cameras, because on Zoom, you hit share video and most people just use 1 camera. But there's a piece of equipment that you can buy. It's an adapter. And if you plug that in and we show you how to do it, you can actually switch from 1 camera to another. So if that's helpful to any of the trial lawyers who are listening to this right now, we're going to create a video and post the links on the equipment you can buy so you guys can do it too.
Another thing is in one of these document cameras are really useful so that, a lot of times it's good and better to put up an electronic exhibit, but sometimes you want to draw on it. Sometimes you want to, I had one of the defense doctors and I took his deposition and, our client had massive initial injuries. And so I didn't even ask him what his opinions were that were harmful to me. I just went through and I got just an outline that I got from depositphotos.com. You can get one from Shutterstock. There's all kinds of, just places where you can get stock images but are in good resolution. So I just got like a body outline, and I said, would you agree he had a severe traumatic brain injury? Yeah. And would that be about here? And I'd circle the head and I'd write, severe traumatic brain injury. And then, he had a tooth knocked out, right? And so I'd circle that, but tooth knocked out. Now the tooth ended up in the lung. And so I put a dot in the lung and tooth and lung, wrote that out. And we're creating this through the defense expert. And, and it would have done 2 things. One, before any of our doctors testify, the defense is talking about how hurt my guy is. because I was going to play their medical expert before I played ours. The second thing is because I did not ask him, because his opinion was going to be he got really, really hurt, but now he's a lot better. Well, I didn't ask him in the deposition about how he got better. And the defense didn't ask him any questions in his deposition because they're going to bring him live at trial. So he was going to testify when I put him on about how hurt this guy is. And then a week later, the same guy's going to come back and say he's not really that hurt anymore. The dissonance that creates, it really looks like he said one thing the first time and then came back and told a new story. So, just that document camera was really handy with that. It's also handy when you have physical items, like, you want to have two, you're going to have a picture of the scene and 2 toy cars. If you don't want to do a big 3D model, put them on the document camera. Or even what I've done before is like, we had a tractor trailer wide right turn case. You can print out like a Google map, picture of the scene, get some try to make paper, even like squares and rectangles for the tractor and trailer. And then you were here, and you just kind of like create your own animation with cardboard, like kind of how South Park started with cardboard over the background. And, it's cheap, but it gives you a visual, because if we're going to do Zoom trials, we have to entertain the jury. For the opening, we found not so much. We wanted that eye-to-eye connection. But for the question and answer, I think we need to be breaking in visuals constantly, so that we're changing it up and we're entertaining them.
Enjoying the episode? Do you wish you had Trial Lawyer Nation on the go? Well, wish no more. The Trial Lawyer Nation app is available now exclusively on iOS devices. Access our entire podcast library, create a favorites list, search for old and new episodes, and much more. It truly is Trial Lawyer Nation at your fingertips. Download this free app now and enjoy the top legal podcast for plaintiff attorneys wherever you go.
So whenever we do this again, what are the biggest things you're going to be thinking about before our next Zoom trial?
Well, thing one is we tried, but in Bexar County, it was in San Antonio, Texas, you don't get assigned a trial judge until shortly before trial. So you don't know who your judge is going to be. And because of that, we had between our side and the other side 14 Daubert motions with responses due the Friday before. We had summary judgment motions that had to be finished briefing and argued that were going to be argued that first Monday. We had all the motions in limine that had to get filed. The evidence, the exhibits had to be marked up electronically and exchanged. Basically all the briefing had to be done that week before. It was really stressful to be doing all that legal work and juggling the witnesses, because we thought trial was going to start on Monday, but then the judge decided to have 2 days of pretrial and start on Wednesday, which meant we had 11 experts we're going to call, between medical doctors, treating doctors and experts. Well, we had to go juggle all their schedules, and they had other things. And so we're dealing with that, and we're trying to prep our lay witnesses. We're trying to prep our expert witnesses. We're doing with schedules, practicing with the technology, and trying to meet all these deadlines. We did it. If I had to do it again, I would have started with the technology a lot earlier, and I would have tried to find some way to get a pretrial conference and get those issues decided 2-3 weeks before trial. Plus, some of my opening, even I was going to have to call an audible after the motions in limine were heard and after the summary judgments were heard. Like, is this theory, I want to talk about it, is this going to make it to trial or not? I was pretty confident it would, but I had to have in the back of my mind, okay, no, if the judge grants this motion, I'm going to have to change it this way. And if they grant that motion, I got to change it that way. And kind of like, what would be my other story? I don't want to, I want to have a plan. I don't want to be freaked out if something happens.
I think one of the things I'll be thinking about is, what technology do we need? What technology do we have? And what is our role in that to help tell the story? I think we learned how important simplicity was in all of this. And I think next time I want to think about, what do we do so we're not overwhelmed in the logistics of all of this, and we can still focus on telling the story, but doing it well.
Yeah, I think the more we do it, the easier it'll be. This was all new. We're using new equipment for the first time, kind of our first time to go really. We had the virtual boot camp, but that was different. That's a CLE. And also because we weren't having to deal with other people's Zooms and stuff, that was a webinar, we could control. Like, I actually could point at where I was going to go because I knew where I was going to be. I knew where my screen was going to be. It was more predictable. And frankly, on the virtual boot camp, you just hired a professional crew from the get-go. We didn't try to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Whereas here, we tried doing ourselves. We're still going to do a lot ourselves, but for the experts, when we were going to use the 10-foot model so that we could really, be able to show the whole thing and have us standing up and have both of us in there at the same time and then follow the cars. And we were to use the professional camera people for that. And then for opening, closing, and jury selection. But it was a smaller case. I'm sure we can do it all ourselves. I'm confident, but I think the more we practice with it, but I would just tell the lawyers, like, please just practice and then watch the film. It's like college athletes, professional athletes, they're always having to watch the film to see what they did good, what they did poorly. Let me rephrase. What they did well, my mother would kill me. That's bad grammar, saying what they did good. What they did well, what they did not so well, and improve. And, watch the film and see how it looked on film and just work with it. But no one's going to be perfect. The other thing is just what really took my stress away, it was a mindset thing. It's something I've been working with Sari a lot on. So as much as we trial lawyers like to have big egos and we want to show that we're the biggest badass around, and look, you have to have a little bit of that in you to do this work. Frankly, just to get up there and, to go, like this case, to put hundreds of thousands of your own money into a case, take a gamble and get up there and put it all on the line. You've got to have an ego. But who cares? Because the jury don't give a crap about it. The jury is not going to give a big verdict because they think Michael Cowan's cool, or Michael Cowan did a good job, or he blew the other lawyer away, or he's a badass, or it looked cool. No, they don't give a crap about me. And if anything, I have negative credibility, and maybe I look too slick. So it's not about me. The trial's not about me. The trial's about the jury and their journey from coming in as regular people, and they're going to do something. Now, what that something is to do justice, is it going to be something to get rid of a lawsuit that's not a just lawsuit, or is it they're going to see a company did something wrong and hurt somebody, and they're going to try and make it right? So it's about the jury. It's about the jury's journey, and it's about my client and what my client's gone through, and can we help the client or not? And you just have to trust that the jurors are there because they want to do the right thing. And when you trust that, then they'll work with you through a technical glitch. They will. It's just like if you're stumbling on a word or something, it's not the end of the world. They'll listen, they'll wait, because they care. They want to do the right thing. And I really believe there aren't that many people that get out there saying, I really hate lawsuits, and so I'm going to get on jury just to torpedo this case. I think at one time there may have been a few more of them when the Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse was really going on, but I don't think that happens very often. I think it's more they just don't buy your case. But I think most of them are there saying, I want to do the right thing. I want to do justice. I want to be part of something. I'm taking time out of my life. I'm getting, in Texas, they're getting paid $8 a day. I want to do something meaningful with this. And I think if we trust them that they want to do that, it takes the stress away, because it's not on us. We can't do anything meaningful. All we can do is tell them the story, give them the tools that they need to do their job, and then just have faith. That between just about having faith and then it being about my client, not about me, it took all the stress away from getting ready. And then it took a lot of the stress out of the settlement decision. It really did, because we had a number and we weren't going to settle if they didn't pay that number. And frankly, they paid more than that number. But that's another story for another time. But the fact is, we had our number, and I thought it was a fair number, and I had no problem both going to trial. They wouldn't pay that number because I thought it was fair, and I wanted to make sure my client was taken care of, and that's the number we needed to really take care of him for life and his family. But at the same time, I had no problem taking a settlement that got him that number. Because then we did what he didn't hire us. He didn't just say his family. Actually, it was not even him. It was his family, because he was really out of it when the referring lawyer got hired. They didn't go hire the lawyers because we want Michael Cowan to win a big verdict and get famous and really be, get more good cases and have a big ego and have everyone think he's great. That's not why my client hired me. My client hired me because someone hurt him. They didn't want to pay him, and he needed money to live on and support his family and get medical care. And so when you remember that's the goal, that's why we're here. Then, when we get something that's fair, that's not worth the risk of going in for it, I didn't feel as bad about taking it, like, oh, well, I'm a wimp, but I lost my opportunity. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks I lost the opportunity to try a case I could have hit a home run on, because I think I really could have. Yeah. But at the same time, that's one, there was a risk, then there'd be an appeal. And, this is really, really taking care of this family. And it's the right thing to do. And I don't feel bad about it now because I'm keeping that mindset that this isn't me. The whole trial is not about me. I'm just one character in a play or one character in the TV show.
And I think it was still another great opportunity for you to practice and hone your trial skills, because we had to rehearse more because this was going to be Zoom. And it was magical to see that go to the next level each time you did it. And I enjoyed watching that.
Thanks. I guess the last thing is, the clients need some practice on Zoom. The witnesses need some practice on Zoom, and they need lighting. And you need to think about where they're going to be. We were trying to encourage people to come to the office. And we have a big enough office we could put people in separate rooms so we wouldn't have social distancing. And I think some defense lawyers and even judges would object to you being in the same room as the client because you could give them signals or write notes. We wouldn't do that, but it could happen. But we had other offices. But because we wanted to make sure they had good lighting and stuff. Some of our clients lived in Laredo, Texas, which is like a 3-hour drive. And we weren't sure that they were going to be able to do it. So I have a friend who I went to law school with. We had arrangements to use his conference room, and we were going to set up a laptop with a good webcam. He had good internet. We were going to set up, at least our ring light, and make sure there's lighting there, so that they had a place. Because if not, they may be sitting in a house that's not very dark, holding their phone, or walking around somewhere holding their phone, testifying, and it would take a lot away. So I think that's the other thing is that we need the practice for ourselves, but our witnesses need it too.
Absolutely.
Well, if anybody has a big case, and I don't like begging for cases on here or pushing too hard for cases on here because I want this to be about you and not about just me getting business as much as I love it when I get to work on good cases. But seriously, if you have a case and the judge wants to do a Zoom trial and you're scared to do it and it's a good case, call us. We'll talk. Whether we do it with you, you want us to do it with you, or you just want to do it on your own and get some advice, don't be scared of the Zoom trial. I'm telling you. The options are either going to be Zoom trial or wait another year or two. That's the reality. Because when trials start going again, our personal injury cases aren't coming first. We've got criminal cases. We have child protective services cases. We have, certain kind of family law cases with young children involved. We have a lot of things that are going to take precedence over our cases, unfortunately. And there's going to be a big line. And even when you get to personal injury case, there may be 10 older ones in front of you. So don't be afraid of the Zoom trial. This is our best path to justice right now. And I am convinced that it's going to be every bit as good as any other kind of trial.
And I will share all of the links to everything we bought, and I'll make sure that we share a video on how to do some of the technical stuff to help everyone else along the way too.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Trial Lawyer Nation. On our next episode, we're going to be talking about a real trial. So come on back.
Thank you for joining us on Trial Lawyer Nation. I hope you enjoyed our show. If you'd like to receive updates, insider information, and more from Trial Lawyer Nation, sign up for our mailing list at triallawyernation.com. You can also visit our episodes page on the website for show notes and direct links to any resources in this or any past episode. To help more attorneys find our podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on any of our social media outlets. If you'd like access to exclusive, plaintiff lawyer-only content and live monthly discussions with me, send a request to join the Trial Lawyer Nation Insider Circle Facebook group. Thanks again for tuning in. I look forward to having you with us next time on Trial Lawyer Nation.
Each year, the law firm of Cowan Rodriguez Peacock pays millions of dollars in co-counsel fees to attorneys nationwide on trucking and company vehicle cases. If you have a case involving death or catastrophic injuries and would like to partner with our firm, please contact us. We have experience finding potential defendants that other firms miss, and we've added millions of dollars to cases by finding these sources of recovery. If you have a catastrophic injury or death case where the policy limits appear to be insufficient, give us a call. If we can find another defendant, we can partner on the case. And if we can't, then we won't ask for any of the fees. You can reach Delisi Friday by calling 210-941-1301 or send an email to podcast@triallawyernation.com. She will coordinate a time for Michael Cowan to speak with you in person or by phone to discuss the case in detail. This podcast has been hosted by Michael Cowan and is not intended to, nor does it create the attorney-client privilege between our host, guest, or contributors and any listener for any reason. Content from the podcast is not to be interpreted as legal advice. All thoughts and opinions expressed herein are only those from which they came.